Welcome back to Estate Agency Mastery. We are on season 3, episode 10, would you believe. Now, I'm delighted to be joined by Euan Williams. Euan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, you know the score. You actually are an avid listener of the podcast, which makes me super happy. But whether you're in Birmingham, Belfast, Bognor Regis, you're an agent and you're thinking, I want to go and start my own thing. Doesn't matter if it's with a brokerage or as an independent. As someone that's been at a couple of brokerages and has really taken hold of this kind of lead generation piece now, and you're running a great business, which I'm really pleased to see. If you're thinking about doing it and you're like, right, what should I do? Because we've got loads of experts giving all different tips. What are 3 things that you would focus on from day one?
So for me, I'd say tip number 1, speak to everybody that you know. So friends, family, colleagues, previous colleagues, literally just let everybody know what you're starting out to do. You'll find that everyone will be your biggest cheerleader, your biggest fan, but you've got to let everybody know that this is your intention. You're starting a new business. This is where you're focusing on. If there's anyone that you can possibly help, sell, find a property for, share my details, but absolutely let everybody know what you're intending to do.
So say I'm listening to this and I'm going, it was easier said than done, and I actually got a bit of fear of telling people, and do people really want to support me? You know, this is Britain where everyone likes to support the underdog, but at the same time everyone likes to see someone fail. How was it received? Did you get any negative comments? Were most people pro? Did everyone, sometimes I think it's when you tell people that you're closest to, they don't care, and someone that you knew from school 10 years ago, they're like, go for it, you. And in fact, my friend's got a property to sell. So just guide me through how that went.
I think for me, in terms of when I was leaving my employed setting, I think there were a few people who were a bit skeptical about moving away from, a good business, earning a good wage and going out on my own. So there was a bit of, skepticism there, I'd say, from, sort of colleagues at the time. But in terms of like friends and family, hugely supportive. They just want to see you succeed. And I've always found that if you do step out of your comfort zone, your first bit of business will come from somebody that you know, more than likely. Going into this space, it will be from a friend or a family, something along those lines. That will probably be where your first lead comes from. So the transition was quite seamless for me. I've always been someone that's enjoyed networking and getting out and about, speaking to people. So for me, it was quite a straightforward transition, but there were a few people who were a bit skeptical about the whole move. Okay,
listen, that makes sense. I think a couple of things to touch on there. I always say to people, your comfort zone is the most dangerous place in the world, and so you've got to get out. The second thing is, there'll be people listening to this now going, and it's a bit like the bully at school you remember, so you didn't want to put a social media post out in case that person might, and then you get to 40 as I am, it didn't really matter, right? Did you, when your ex-colleagues were, why are you doing this? Would that scare you? Did you use it as fuel? Was it an element of both? How did you take it?
A bit of both. I sort of knew that this is what I wanted to do. So in my head, it was a decision made. I'd been sort of sitting on it for about 16 months. So when I had sort of sat there and I said, right, this is what I'm doing, that was it. So I started sort of adapting how I was working while I was still employed, just getting myself set up. So when I was ready to make that jump, I was good to go. So social media, for example, I was posting regularly on social media, mostly just images, not really much of myself. We weren't allowed to go too far where I was employed, but I was definitely posting daily in terms of new listings. I think for me that was the most important thing, was just using that time while I was employed to sort of get myself set up so that when I was ready to make that jump, I could just go. I definitely used it as fuel, I'd say 100%.
Okay, fine. So we've gone, kind of tip 1 is speak to everyone in your world. Tip 1.5, because I want to get some more out of you, is whatever that transition piece of moving across is, there's certain things you can do, like you say, set yourself up as a personal agent on social media. Just get yourself out there, follow a few more agents, learn bits and bobs. In terms of the other bits of the transition, whether it's financially, having a conversation with the other half, looking at notice periods and non-competes and contracts, what other bits would you advise doing during that period?
Definitely speak to your partner, if you've got a partner on there, on the side there, because it will have an impact on you, but also family life as well. So it's really important to have your partner on board. Again, they will be a massive, massive support to you. There's definitely been occasions and times where I think to myself, gosh, like, what am I doing? Have I made the right decision to go into a self-employed space? And it'll be my partner who says, listen, you're absolutely incredible at what you do. I hear you on the phone. I see your success. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. So I think it's really important to have your partner on side as well. In terms of the finances, that again can be quite tough. My advice for anybody that's going into a self-employed role, I'd probably say try and have at least 6 to 12 months worth of savings behind you. Obviously, where I am now, we're quite fortunate. We have, advanced commissions, so that is something that you can now, dip into if you are thinking about going into a self-employed space. But when I joined, the movement, there wasn't that available. So again, for me, I made sure that, I had money ready to go, so that when I did make that jump, I wasn't sort of, scratching my head in terms of how will I pay the bills.
Makes sense.
So yeah, really important to have the finances in order as well.
I completely get it, and thank you for that plug. We try and keep the podcast impartial, but you're right. If you are going self-employed, have the money available, whether that's savings, a friend, uncle, family. Have those hard conversations. There'll often be people in your world that go, "I'll check you 20 grand, just pay me back," and But if you don't have those conversations, they don't work. Obviously, the model we're both in has advanced commission, which is another option. But you need to have that money available. The flip side is, I always say to agents is, I can look in the whites of anyone's eyes after the first 45 days and say, this is going to work or not.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily need to have the whole amount available liquid. You can have it in ISAs. You can have your uncle say, I might lend you some money or whoever. Yeah. But know you've got access to it should you need it, whether that's a business loan, again, advanced commission or whatever else. Yeah. But really your risk is, if you're going from high street, say, employed to self-employed, is 45 days, because we know if it's going to work or not within that period. So if you need 2-3 months worth of money liquid, and the worst that could possibly happen is you'll go and get another valuer job or whatever else, right? Because you're good at what you do. That's the worst case. You burn through 2-3 months worth of cash. Best case is, as we're seeing, you go and create something that your kids can be proud of, that your fund is flexible. We've got a board over there that we've written down all the advantages of going self-employed. But I think you're right. You have to, because the biggest mistake I see, or the biggest failure when agents fail, I see in self-employed agency, isn't actually running out of cash. It's starting to see the cash deplete, and then the mindset goes far before the cash does. And it's a bit like when you see CEOs when they go, the market's dropping, let's double down on marketing, and the CFO goes, no, let's cut marketing. It's the same thing, right? So I completely agree with that piece there. Okay, so we've got call everyone in your world. We've got get your partner on side, which is 1.5, and get your finances set up. So let's say now you've started, you're out and about. What should you be doing? Do you sit behind your desk? Do you go out and prospect? What type of prospecting do you do? What works? What doesn't? Give us some gold, Euan.
I think for me, you've got to be out and about. You've got to get out there immediately. So for me, I've been a big fan of prospecting. That's probably the one thing that I've done really, really consistently. I've spoken and listened to so many agents talk about how they've started their business and how they've made it a success. You'll have people that talk about social media. You'll have people who will talk about, direct mail. You may have, could be stereotyping here, but mums, but could be dads, tapping into their school network, BNI, anything like that, networking groups. There's so many different ways that you can try and sort of start building out your business. But what's been really successful for me has been direct mail. And that's just something that I have stuck to ever since going self-employed.
So direct mail then, Euan, you do some really, really good stuff for that. So give the listeners some gold. What do you do differently?
So for me, coloured envelopes, I swear by that. I think that's a really, really good opening rate when you do coloured envelopes. I had a lady who gave me 2 listings, and that came off the back of a coloured envelope. She called me to say, look, I really loved your style. You know, you've gone to a lot of effort. You've put the letter into a coloured envelope. You've put a stamp on there, and you've handwritten the address. So she felt like I'd gone to a huge amount of effort to write to her personally. So I would definitely swear by doing something like that. Very different to any other agent who's sending out letters from, you know, any of those prospecting companies that are out there, which all look the same and have the same message.
Makes sense.
Also, in terms of the content, I like to try and make sure that the content like resonates with the person that's actually receiving the letter. So I try to sort of personalize it in terms of where they may be at in the journey, and included a story which will be, again, similar to sort of where they're at in the process. So rather than sort of sending out letters at certain trigger points, which is what everyone else is doing, I completely do my own, you know, sort of trigger points, and I just make sure that the letter resonates with the seller as well.
What about the brochures you mentioned?
The brochures, yeah. So the brochures, I've got a few different bits of content that I send out. So, for example, the first letter that I send out is a nice brochure, very, very different to what anyone else will be sending out, and it's just a nice introduction as to who I am, how I work, you know, what will be involved in the process, and what you can expect from me, essentially. Really, really nice sort of, you know, opening into Euan Williams. And then the following week, I'll go back and I'll knock on that door. And we'll have a conversation, hopefully, about how they're getting on in the market and if there's anything that I can do potentially to help them on their way. So for me, yeah, I think, you know, direct mail's been really, really important. I've just been really, really religious with it. You know, just every single week ensuring that something goes out to those sellers who are on the market to see if there's any way that I can offer them some value.
And does the old school comp slip still work?
It does indeed. So I mix up, I've got like a 12-week campaign that I run essentially. So as I mentioned, it will involve a brochure, a nice starting touch point, some door knocking. There'll be some letters in there as well, and there'll be a compliment slip, which will be handwritten. So I do try to sort of change up what they're receiving, so it's not just consistently the same old letter that's going out. And not a letter that's just focusing on me and the brokerage that I'm a part of. You know, again, I think it's really important to ensure that the message that's in any of your comms with that person that's on the market is very much about them and the situation that they're in and how you can potentially help them sell.
Okay, nice. And one of the things you touched on earlier, which I'd love to be your last tip, is door knocking, right? And agents will go, oh, it's invasive, it doesn't work in the UK, and find every reason not to do it. Now, the reason I'm such a big advocate of it is I grew my first business from door knocking, and I hated it. It was brutal. I felt like a bit of shit on someone's shoe. It was humiliating. Everything about door knocking was not nice, but I wouldn't have been profitable every year till I sold that first business had I have not gone out of my comfort zone and knocked on doors. So if you're an agent, you're going, I wouldn't mind doing this maybe. How do you go about it? How do you build yourself up? Does it work?
It works. It works. As I mentioned earlier, there was a point where in business, I sort of got to a point where I needed to do something a bit different because I needed some business like quickly. I had stock on my books, but they weren't really sort of, you know, transacting at that moment in time. So I was like, I need new stock, something just new to get out there to speak to my buyers about. So I was like, look, I need to go out there and I need to door knock. And when I started it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to say? But after knocking a few doors, I very quickly realized that actually it's not that bad. You know, once you've had, you know, 2 or 3 good conversations at the doorstep, you very quickly realize that actually it was all in your head in the first place. And actually people will have time for you. I think the worst thing that you'll get from a door knock is somebody just saying, look, it's not for me, I'm okay, or I'm busy. But nobody will say to you, you know, piss off, why are you at my door? You know, they'll always be very, very polite, and that's just because I think we're here in the UK, and we're very polite, and that's just how we are. But for me, I think I very quickly realized that from all the prospecting that you could possibly do, door knocking is the best bang for buck.
Okay,
100%.
So I love that, right? And I think I said before, my old American business partner was saying you only earn money when you're not behind your desk, and your biggest investment should be shoe leather, right? And I'll always say that. I'll keep on pushing. But let's say now I'm going to go and set my own business up, whether it's brokerage, independent, whatever. I'm going to do some direct mail. I'm going to speak to my partner, and my finances sorted, and they got to the end of this podcast, I'm thinking, right, I'm going to do the door knocking. Just give us a couple of tips before we wrap up on what do you say?
I literally just knock at the door and say, hi, I'm Euan Williams. I'm a local estate agent and resident in the area. I've noticed that you're in the market trying to sell your home. How's it going? And just let them...
Can't be that simple.
As simple as that. Just a nice opening question and let them start talking.
Yeah.
The ideal scenario there is that they eventually start chipping away at the agent that they're with. So that's not come from me. That's just them going in that direction.
Yeah.
And then we can start talking about, okay, well, fine, fantastic. You know, I've got 2 or 3 ideas that I think that would really help you sell your home. You know, could we perhaps come back maybe later this week where we can sit down, have a conversation. We'll look at what we could do differently in terms of your marketing strategy at the moment now, and we'll put a plan together as to how we can help you sell.
I love it. One of the ones I use very similar to that is, listen, I can't stop on the way to an appointment. So they're going, okay, guard down. Listen, if I was to share with you 4 or 5 reasons why I think your property's not selling, if you use that with your current agent, would that be of value?
Yep.
Brilliant. What's your email address?
Yep.
In fact, let me WhatsApp it over to you, and just going down that route. And then what I always find is if you say, listen, there's no video, there's no floor plan, the dimensions are wrong, they're not using AEO or GEO in the description, etc. They'll then send that to their agent, who won't do anything with it.
Yeah.
And then when you go back a week or 2 later and you go, oh, did you not get my email, or did you not have a chance to send it to the agent? No, we didn't. They didn't action any of it. Can we get you in?
Yeah.
It works so well. So
the other one that works really well for me, and that was probably my main go-to last year, was knocking on their door and not asking for their house, but just saying, look, you're on the market, so clearly you need somewhere to live. Can I help you with your search?
Yeah.
And that was just a very easy, very just relaxed conversation. You'll get name, number, email address, and then, you can nurture them off the back of that. If you start putting out letters on their behalf into your local market, that's sort of working for you. It's in 2 ways, obviously. Number one, they're seeing that you're working for them really, really hard, and they'll be like, gosh, this guy's really going to work for me. And the second thing is that you're getting more information about you out to your local market. So it sort of works in 2 ways there. It's like double-pronged, which is quite handy.
It is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Right, you have been great, but I'm not going to let you get away without curveballing you, Euan. So everything you've said today has been golden. If there's one other thing, whether it could be mindset, it could be time blocking, it could be whatever, but one thing that you wish you could tell yourself when you go, or just a piece of advice you could tell yourself when you started this all those months ago, what is it?
Hard question, that one. I think for me, it's just, have a plan. And don't actually say yes to everything that's available to you. I think the whole self-employed space is growing a lot at the moment, and I think there are lots of different businesses out there who are latching onto us as individual estate agents, saying we can promise you this, we can get you this many leads, we can do this, we can do that, and you're just like, fantastic, because all you want is leads. So you sort of say yes to absolutely everything, and before you know it, you're hemorrhaging money. If you sign up to somebody who's doing a social media campaign for you and you're based in London, they're going to give you quite big numbers. They're going to say it's going to cost you £300 just to do the management for you, and then you're going to be spending quite a bit more in terms of your daily spend to actually make a dent in the London market to get any leads coming through. So I think one piece of advice that I'd sort of give to anyone that's starting out is just stick to the basics. It's all about going out there and, as I mentioned beforehand, there's lots of different things that you could do that are free, whether that's social media, whether that's interviewing local businesses, whether that's door knocking, whether that's, putting a letter into an envelope and then hand delivering it rather than putting, a second-class stamp on an envelope, because again, that does still cost money and it does add up in the end. But go out and do it, by hand. I still go out now and deliver my letters by hand. Last week I did 100 odd letters, which that did go in the post, but then I did another 50, which I did by hand. So there's a lot that you can do, which will be absolutely free, where you don't have to start hemorrhaging lots of money, especially in the early days where money is obviously going to be quite tight. So you don't want to be spending your money willy-nilly on just anything and everything and not getting the value back. So yeah, I'd probably say that would be the one sort of big tip that I'd give anyone that's sort of thinking about starting.
I love that. Lead with revenue, red light, green light it. Do the stuff that's cheap and free. Make the phone calls, not the doors. Hand deliver stuff that's golden. And
I'd also say, business plan. Look at those numbers. Break down what you need to do. What's the average fee in your area? What's the average sale price? How many valuations do you need? How many instructions? Just get it all down and put it into nice, manageable chunks so you know exactly where you need to be.
Absolute gold. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.